Hello, and welcome to Failing Up, a limited series from the shallow end about our collecting failures, how they haunt us, and ultimately make us better collectors. It's about the moments we need, even if we don't necessarily want them. I'm Dave Schwartz, and I wanted to do this series to help us all feel a little less alone in this hobby. We've all made mistakes. No one is perfect. And maybe, just maybe, we can learn from each other. Today's guest is Andrew, who's St. Croix Cards on Instagram. Andrew is a soccer collector, among other things, and a contributor to the Slabstocks network. These days, Andrew's collection is in great shape. But there's one decision he made when he first got back in the hobby that taught this teacher a lesson he'll never forget. Welcome now to the podcast, Andrew at St. Croix Cards. Andrew, it's good to see you again. Still a contributor to Slabstocks, which is fantastic. Soccer collector extraordinaire. Andrew, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. I don't know if extraordinaire is the right word, but yes, I love soccer, and I appreciate you having me. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Well, it's great to have you here. So if you wouldn't mind, take us back in time and tell us about a choice or a decision that you're not sure why you did or how you survived it way back in the day.
Yeah, so I guess if we're going to go way back in the day, probably one of the, my whole hobby experience probably is based somewhat on a mistake. If we go down that road, I probably am one in hundreds of thousands of people who are kind of COVID collectors. I was a little later to the game. I was kind of 2021. And really the only reason I got in was I was a teacher at the time at a high school. We were in session, masked up that whole 9 yards, and actually contracted COVID. And so as a family, I had two young kids, and we were really struggling with, what do we do? Because our kids need to go to daycare. My wife needed to work. So I basically got put in the basement. Right. So here, live in the basement, we'll stay upstairs, you be downstairs. And as I got really bored, I started looking around, found my cards. Just like a lot of people did at the time, right? Discovering their cards and trying to find things to do. But I'm going through these cards, and you've got all the nostalgia that floods back, and I'm going through all these cards, and I was 90s, kind of early 2000s. So you can imagine, like back then, just some of the cards that maybe not worth a ton then that might have grown in value. And so I'm going through these and being like, man, this is great. I should get back into this, and I'm trying to communicate with my wife, and she's like, yeah, I'm okay with that. As long as, maybe you keep your cards kind of separate, like money doesn't come from the jobs that we have. Like we keep that self-contained. And I'm like, oh, I can do that. Maybe I can sell some of these cards and really catapult myself into the hobby. Cause I'm hearing everybody saying it's a big deal and cards are going crazy, and they had been 2020. So anyway, I'm going through my boxes, and I get to this little small square box, and it's all press pass, right? If you remember press pass.
Yeah.
It's all 2000 press pass. So I'm rolling through, and sure enough, get halfway through the box, and there are two really good conditioned Tom Bradys. So at the time, looking back on it, they were probably doing, $150, $200 raw. But I know nothing about the hobby or how to sell things. Like I'm at the point like creating an eBay account to like sell my cards, not understanding this whole process.
Sure.
So in my box of cards is also a very dated Beckett. And so I'm like, hey, I wonder what these cards are worth. Not putting two and two together. So I open the Beckett up, 2000 press pass. I'm going down there, like, there's the Tom Brady. And I'm like, well, if it was worth that, then maybe I could sell it for a little bit more. So I'm doing the whole thing, taking pictures front and back of the card. I'm getting I'm learning how to put, the description in, eBay. And I think I listed it for like $30, the first one. And you know the bin, right? Mm-hmm. We all know it now, but I was like, it's sold. And I was like, I just made $30. So first mistake was looking at a 2002 Beckett in 2021 trying to distinguish pricing, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is I have two of them, right? And so maybe I should have sat there and gone, wow, that sold really fast. So the second thing I do is I was like, well, if I just made 30, let's list it for just a little bit higher. Binned it again. And I'm like, wow, this is so easy. I'm making money. Like, I'm looking through the rest of the box. Like, do I have any other Tom Brady's? Like, this is great. And here, like, my first $70+ in the hobby is really the biggest mistake that I made right off the jump, right? Well, quickly do I realize that, like, a lot of money just got, not a lot of money, but enough for me to get really started is left on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm being really careful moving forward. But like this whole like getting back into the hobby really started with me being like a complete idiot and just being like, oh yeah, this is fun and this is good. And it was a good lesson, I think, right off the bat. I was mad. I was frustrated when I found out, because then people are like, well, didn't you grade them? And I was like, what do you mean grade them? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And they're like, well, you could send them to PSA. They get a 10. They're not 150. They're this much money. And I'm like, wow, yep, way to go me, you know?
I totally identify with the story, and that is just very similar in the exact same spot. So you sold the first two press pass Brady's for around, you said $70 or $80 total.
Total, yeah.
Right. And instantly, at first, you're like, this is amazing, right? And then how long passed between being excited to make that fast money and realizing that you may have made a mistake?
Yeah, and I probably should have, like, as an educator, you'd think maybe I should teach myself a little bit before jumping in and just like getting your feet wet. But I started then getting into the content, like going on YouTube and being like, hey, what's there? And people, then you started getting people to say, well, checking comps or, checking sales of cards prices. Well, then you're curious of like, hey, how well did I do? And you go back and you start looking at eBay sold listings, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, somebody just got a super sweet deal. And I mean, it was probably just a couple days later, but really it was an aha moment of like, I better know what I'm doing, because if I don't know what I'm doing, this is going to continue to happen over and over and over again. Like what are some parameters to put into place for me so that, I'm making educated decisions. I'm, and I can do this long-term, because for me, this is a hobby, like having a full-time job and, me getting to be a part of like this podcast or the hobby. And like, this is what I love, like the relationships and the people. And, for me, it was like, if I have $0 because I'm not pulling from my job, this isn't going to last very long. So how do I continue to make good decisions so that I can stay and build the relationships that I'm hopeful for? Because I was also, mid 30s and kind of at that point where I have kids and I didn't really have a social life. And it was like looking for those avenues to get out there and to meet people. And I thought this would be a great avenue, and it's turned into that great avenue. But like, if those mistakes would have happened and continued to happen, sooner or later, like the money pool doesn't there. The Bradys dry up and I got nothing left.
So what did you then do when you realized, okay, there's more to this than I realized? The hobby has changed since I was a kid.
Yep.
Time to get up to speed. How did you then start to educate yourself on the modern hobby?
So for real, to start, it was more of like, and I fell into like the Ryan Johnson card collector too, like in his early videos, the training videos, like here's how you ship cards, here's how you do it. Like I learned a lot from him early on, like before he had a shop, before he had all his stuff. It was a great way for me to learn, and then just ultimately like understanding like how to search on eBay, how to look at sold listings. And this is before like Card Ladder. Like this is just kind of going through, like 130 point to a sense of like, hey, what are things selling for? Do I have any of these cards? And really like starting to really look at what people wanted. But at that time, what people wanted was base prism. And then I got caught into that realm of like, hey, everybody's doing this, I should do this too. Same. And so it's taken, I mean, like, I feel like my whole hobby journey, like for the first couple of years was mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. And it was just weathering those mistakes, but you didn't know they were mistakes because everybody was making them. And so then it got to a point where, you just continued to kind of, you start to find different content. And I was starting to pick up on things that, ultimately people saying things like collect what you like, what brings you, what brings you joy. Because for me, it wasn't about making hundreds of thousands of dollars and making this my career. It was just nostalgia and what do I enjoy, and ultimately what can I bring my kids into at some point that we could do together.
Right. So you didn't need to make millions, but at the same time, you didn't want to also be losing out on potential money. You want to be maximizing what you had, doing the best that you can so that you could, like when you discuss it with your wife, be able to have the hobby be self-sustaining.
Yeah. And that's been and continues to be my goal. And that's important to me just because, at times in my own like personal life, like, I have an addictive personality where it's like, if it's fantasy football or if it's, sports in general, like watching soccer, like I could watch soccer all day, every day for extenuating periods of time. And I knew that like that addictive personality was there. And so if I made the commitment of like sports cards, like I could have seen myself doing that, and she could too. And she's fantastic. And she was like, "Hey, I just want to protect you and ultimately protect us. I want you to enjoy it and have the blast and do that. But like, if you can build it from your original collection, that might mean a little bit more too in the long run." But I also saw like in my mistakes, really quickly, I was like, okay, out of all these cards that I had as a kid, and I had a ton, there's a really small percentage of them that had actual value. And then it was learning like, hey, if I want to do this, I'm going to need to go to shows or to find an avenue to find cards that I can at the time flip or to make a little on so that I could continue to do that. But it was quickly like once I started to sell those cards and sell them for lower than they were worth, it was how can this be sustainable? Because at some time I'm going to run out of my old collection that people are going to want to buy the cards and I'll have nothing left. So that money is only that money. And then if it's gone, it's gone. So how do I continue to do this and do this long-term? And that's and here we are 2025 and still kicking, still loving it, still doing it.
You mentioned that it's almost like the first year or two felt like mistake after mistake after mistake. And I don't think you're alone in that feeling. I related completely to you as you were discussing that. I'm sure others were the same way. Was there a point, maybe not an exact moment, maybe it was just gradual, where you could feel yourself becoming more sure of yourself, more confident in your understanding of how to navigate the hobby space?
Yeah, I think, a lot of it was just education. And as, like lifelong learner, as I preach to the kids that I teach every day, it's, hey, never stop learning, whether it's a set, whether it's a player, and you really, and for me, I was working in this world of like football, NFL football, but I didn't want to be there. Like I wanted to be in like the soccer world and the soccer cards. And that's, so that was a difficult kind of transition as well. But really, I'll be honest, like relationships is what shifted my hobby experience. Like I kind of jumped in and I was all alone. Like I didn't have, like I had people I could watch on YouTube and there was a few podcasts that were out there, not a ton, but you could listen and you could, kind of figure it out and you felt like you were a little bit a part of the community. But when I first started going to shows and I met some really important people in the hobby to me that I still connect with and still, have a relationship with, like their knowledge and willingness to share it with me, or me talking about things and being like, man, you really know what you're talking about. Like they gave me the confidence to be like, yeah, I can do this. Yeah, I do know this. And ultimately those same people were the ones that said, hey, don't just be a bystander in the hobby. Like get involved, like be involved, be present, be relational to people through maybe it's reels or podcasts or, get involved and be a part of it. Don't just consume, but actually spend some time. And if you're passionate about it, do it.
So as we begin to wind down here, if you were encountering a new collector, maybe it's somebody at the National where you'll be in a couple of weeks, although if someone's listening to this, the National will be over. But just
you all had a great time.
Right. What a time. Boy, how about that one time? Woo! But let's say if you ran into someone new in the hobby and they were a little bit discouraged and you could tell they were making some mistakes and they weren't sure if they were going to stay in it, how might you encourage them or help them to get up to speed to a point where they were having more fun with the hobby? What advice might you give to them?
I think a lot of it would just be, talking to them of, one, why are they there? Like, like understanding, like, why are you into cards? Why do you love cards? What are the mistakes you've made? I love this concept of a podcast because a lot of times as human beings, we don't want to admit our mistakes, right? We want people to see the beauty, and they want the shiny things that we've accomplished. And sometimes we fail to recognize that like our mistakes make us better, help us to see things. And so I think for people to recognize, even if they're mistakes or they're struggling through it, like, what do you love to collect? Like, are you chasing the things that other people say you should be chasing? Or, do you have the things that you're passionate about? They may not be worth, the $500,000 or $1 million cards, but like, what do you love? Like, is it baseball? Is it basketball? Is it football? Is it soccer? Is it tennis? Like, what is your passion in the hobby? And then, have you found people to connect with? Because I think a lot of people, myself included, I don't know where I'd be. I don't know if I'd be in the space if I didn't meet the amazing people that I've come in contact with via Instagram, at shows. Those relationships are so important to me. And like the National, like everybody's pumped about the National. Like, I love the National and I love the cards that you get to see. But for me, it's the year, the kind of the year culmination of all those people that you talk to, and they're your IG friends or your eBay communication. And like, here you get to see them and catch up with them and be relational with them. So for me, if they're making mistakes in the hobby, to be one, it's okay. Everybody's done it. If they say they haven't, they have. And two, like, this too shall pass. Like, it's, if you're passionate and love it, those mistakes are going to happen, but you're also going to get those wins at times too. And to know that, like, to keep pushing through, if it's something you truly care about, if it's the cards that, bring me back, because that's why I'm here. It is the cards. It's, yes, it's nice to make a little bit here and there, but it's a hobby and it's a passion. And if that's the case, like, you're going to want to be involved and want to be here, whether you're in good times or bad.
Andrew at St. Croix Cards on Instagram. Thank you for the story and for the fantastic advice. It's great to see you again. Take care.
Hey, appreciate the time, and thanks for having me on. This is a blast. Always love to talk cards, right?
Always.
All right, we'll see you later.